I've done a lot of videos talking about the cameras and gear that I use, what's in my camera bag, what I'm loving, but I've never done a video talking about the gear I've stopped using, whether I've upgraded to a different product or it doesn't fit my workflow anymore, or just the gear that I don't like and I regret buying in the first place. So that is what I'm gonna be talking about today. I feel like this is gonna be kind of a chatty one because I have some stories for some of these products. So there will be chapters down below. You can skip around if you want. And thanks to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. I'm gonna start with some hard regrets. Let's talk about gimbals. I have finally admitted to myself that I am not a gimbal girl. Despite really wanting to be one, whenever a new one's released, I am so sucked in by the promo videos and the creator reviews and seeing all the cool shots and transitions you can do with them. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna level up my content. I buy the gimbal and I never touch it. First is the DJI OM4 smartphone gimbal. This is a few years old and DJI makes great gimbals, as I think the internet knows. And I think if your main thing is vertical short form TikToks, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts content, these are really handy. But my main thing is still long form horizontal video, and I just can't justify the added bulk and inconvenience of carrying this around in my camera bag when my phone isn't my main tool. On the same note, I bought the Zhiyun Weebill S gimbal for my mirrorless cameras with the delusion that I was going to start using this while traveling. I don't know what I was thinking when I bought this. I legitimately expected that I was going to start carrying this around and I would take the time to like set down my backpack, dig this out, assemble it, balance my camera on this in the middle of a city street just to get 5 to 10 seconds of B-roll. That is such a hassle for spontaneous on-the-go shooting, not to mention it draws so much more attention to you filming with this kind of setup in public, and it adds quite a bit to my already too heavy camera bag, and I don't do it. Okay, let's talk about the Insta360 One X2. I really debated including this in this video because this camera is definitely not a regret. I love this camera. I've talked about how much I love this camera, but I don't know if there's something wrong with me. I have just been cursed with this thing, which has left me not really using it anymore. The problem I found with this camera, maybe it's just a problem I found with myself, but it's designed to be an action camera. So you mount it on the pole and then you're supposed to use it like out doing cool stuff, like holding it out in front of you, walking, moving, getting shots, swinging it around, right? But the lenses are spherical and exposed. They protrude from the camera, and in my experience, they scratch really easily. If you have also had this happen, please let me know down in a comment below. When I bought this camera, the first time I ever used it, I kid you not, I managed to scratch both lenses within 20 minutes. And once you scratch a lens, it's noticeable. Like you can see it in all of your footage. So I sent it into Insta360 repairs to put new lenses on it, and then I took it on another trip and I was a lot more careful that time. And at the end of that trip, I looked at this thing and noticed that one of the lenses was scratched again. I don't even know how that one happened. It's not like I was walking through the forest and just whacking this thing on every tree as I passed by. So at this point, I'm like, am I gonna have to send this thing in for repair after every time I use it? And I'm just very conflicted about it because I'm sure that Insta360 will continue to develop this line. They already have a newer version than this one out. And it's such a cool camera and such a unique camera and so useful that if they just keep getting better and better, I'm probably gonna buy a new one. As I mentioned earlier, Storyblocks is sponsoring today's video. If you need a video clip, an image, or sound effect for your latest project, Storyblocks has over 1 million high-quality stock assets, and for a low monthly cost, their unlimited all-access plan allows you to download anything in their library and keep it forever, even if you cancel later. And you can use the assets for personal and commercial projects. So if you do a lot of client work, you can use Storyblocks for that too. I especially like that there's so much much aerial footage available because getting drone footage isn't always easy, but it adds so much to a video. Definitely check them out, and I will have a link down in the description. Okay, next I have a couple of lenses to talk about. The first one being the Sony 28mm f2. This is one of the first lenses I ever bought when I switched to the Sony system years ago, and I bought the a7 III. I should never have bought this lens, not because it's a bad lens, it's actually a great lens, and it's very highly rated, and it's at a much more affordable price point than a lot of the Sony branded lenses. It's also so compact, like this is by far the tiniest lens I own, but it's always felt redundant to me because I bought it at the same time that I bought the Tamron 28-75 2.8. So I had a 28 2.8 here and decided to also buy a 28 f2. I mean, I know what my thought process was at the time. I was planning to use this one for these types of videos, and I wanted a little more background blur. Like, there just is not that big of a difference between 28 2.8 and 28 2. Not enough to justify buying a whole second lens for what I was using it for, at least. I mean, if you're looking for a really compact, like everyday leave on your camera lens, this is awesome. Another great lens that I don't use very much and never really did, which I'll explain, is the Sony 70-200mm f4G. Again, this is a really popular lens. It's very highly rated. I have no complaints about it, and I kind of feel bad for it because it never got a shot in my gear bag. So the story of me and this lens, the month was February 2020, and I was about to depart for a month-long trip to Southeast Asia, traveling from Singapore to Hong Kong. I knew I wanted a telephoto lens to shoot some of the things on the itinerary, and I didn't have one yet for my Sony setup. So I went to my local camera store because I saw on their website that they had a used Sony 70-200mm 2.8 GM1, so the older version of the one that's like current right now, which was a lens I'd had my eye on for a while and it was used, so I bought it. I went home, put it on my camera, and within 10 minutes I knew it was way too heavy for what I was looking to carry around on this trip. And I was bummed because I really wanted the 2.8 aperture, but I just knew it wasn't going to work. So I headed back to the camera store to return it, and they happened to have the 70-200 f4 version used as well. And after I felt how much lighter this version was, I was like, okay, I want to get it. But we all know where this is going because it was February 2020. A week later, my Southeast Asia trip was canceled, and by the time lockdown and everything started setting in, the return window on this had closed. And I probably would have returned it because I wasn't really set on the f4 to begin with. I bought it because I needed something at that time for that trip. So I probably would have returned it and thought more about what I wanted to purchase for a telephoto. Then I sat at home for a year and a half and didn't touch it because I wasn't shooting anything I needed a telephoto for. I did later take this on a trip to California, and I got some absolutely beautiful photos with it. Like, it is a great lens, there's no denying it. But then in late 2021, Sony released the new 70-200mm f2.8 GM2, the updated version of the first one that I bought and returned because it was too heavy, with a way lighter build and the new autofocus motors and all the latest tech, and I had to have it. I mostly use telephoto lenses around sunrise and sunset on landscapes and wildlife, which means I shoot in blue hour pretty frequently, and that extra stop of light with the 2.8 makes a big difference. So the 70-200 f4 sat untouched all throughout 2020 and most of 2021, and then I ended up buying the 2.8 version that I really wanted to begin with anyway, so now it sits untouched because I favor this. Okay, next I have a camera that I don't really regret buying, I've just stopped using it. It's the DJI Osmo Pocket, which I talked about when I got this a few years ago. I was so pleasantly surprised with how much I liked this camera when I first bought it. It is so small and discreet, and having the built-in gimbal gets you such smooth footage. It is a great camera for walking around a city. But ultimately, it just got edged out of my camera bag because it didn't serve a wide enough purpose. It's not really an action camera like a GoPro that I would mount on something or go swimming with. And for the walking and talking type stuff, I tend to prefer my Sony ZV-1. And the image quality is actually pretty good for such a small camera, but it wouldn't be my go-to for B-roll. So now it just sits. I will say though, I love the concept of this camera, and I know there's a newer version out. And if DJI continues to develop this line, I've seen some rumors that they will, and I've seen some that they won't, so I have no idea. But if they did, and this started to get better and better, and it was something I'd want to do the walking and talking stuff or use in more ways, I would consider buying a new version of it. So that is some of the gear that I've stopped using or have upgraded to something else or just didn't really like or use in the first place. I would love to know what your gear regrets are. Please tell me down in a comment below. Thanks for watching. I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.